Warning, this video will help you learn how I used prayer to get over my obsession with Leonardo DiCaprio, the king of the world. I'm Jennifer Oakes and I'm 41 years old, and I highly doubt you're obsessed with Leonardo DiCaprio, but once upon a time, Leo was the king of the world. Were you obsessed with Leo? Comment below, let me know. What I'm gonna cover in this video is how my obsession started, what I did about it, and how I got over it. And I'm including chapters in the description box below so you can skip around. So let's rewind back to the mid-1990s. 1994-ish was when I discovered this magazine called Teen Beat or Tiger Beat. It was one of those magazines that had all the pinups for your wall. And my first celebrity crush was Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement. Obsessed. And these magazines kind of promoted girl crazy behavior or celebrity idolizing or obsession. And my mom was kind of like, well, whatever, she's a kid. And she would buy me these magazines, and they always had them at the supermarket checkout. And so it was like 1994 to 1997. So it was a good like 3-year era where I was obsessed with JTT and thought I was going to marry him. And then Home Improvement ended and JTT went off to college. That was his nickname. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was JTT. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? He wasn't in the public eye anymore. In fact, he left Hollywood. But not only that, JTT was kind of short and he had stopped growing. Like, I think I surpassed him in height from because they would always report on how tall they were and stuff like that. Enter Leonardo DiCaprio. So I first saw Leonardo DiCaprio in 1996, Romeo and Juliet. Does anybody remember Romeo and Juliet? It was directed by Baz Luhrmann. I remember the preview for Romeo and Juliet, directed by Baz Luhrmann, and being like, what is this colorful art? I knew that it was gonna take me to a fantasy world. I went and saw that. I was in 7th grade. My mom just kind of dropped me off at the movie theater because I feel like in the 90s, that's what parents did. They dropped you off at the mall, they dropped you off at the movie theater, but there was Leonardo DiCaprio. And he was so much older than me because I was like 13 and I want to say he's like 10 years older than me or 9 years older. But one of the things that turned me off with Leo was he was smoking a cigarette in the commercial and in the movie when I saw it in theaters. And I remember being so grossed out. I was like, ew, ew. Like, that was me. I was all, ew, he smokes cigarettes, gross, And also, I don't know why I didn't separate the actor from Romeo, the character, but I think I was having trouble separating them because I was judging Leonardo DiCaprio, like who he was. From what I have heard, people will yell at actors, like when they're out and about in their personal life, yelling at them because of what their character in whatever TV show or movie did. The fans or the humans or the people, when they see them, they can't separate reality from the film. So I guess don't be that person. And I don't know, I guess I remember thinking Leonardo DiCaprio was very rebellious, kind of. And so I was just kind of turned off to him after seeing Romeo and Juliet. But then Titanic, I was obsessed with learning about the Titanic in 7th grade, sometime in middle school. It was either 7th or 8th grade. I was obsessed with that story. And then when I saw that they were coming out with a movie of it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. And it was just amazing. And I don't know if I right away connected the actor Leonardo DiCaprio from Titanic to Romeo and Juliet. I eventually did at some point, but that actor, after Titanic, he shot. Leo DiCaprio was bigger than Harry Styles. Like, I have some notes here that I wrote down to truly convey the magnitude of Leo-mania in today's generation. You have to compare him to the most viral social media trends or the biggest pop culture moments of recent years. And imagine that it lasts for months or even years without the rapid cycle of internet fame. Like at the time that I am filming this video right now, Taylor Swift is like one of the biggest names in pop culture or whatever, but Leo was bigger than that, or his star, it was just so much stronger. Like, yeah, so it was pre-social media phenomenon that dominated traditional media, fan culture, and everyday conversations in a way that is hard to replicate in today's fragmented media landscape. And I have another note here. DiCaprio's popularity was so immense that when he wasn't nominated for an Oscar for Titanic, over 200 fans protested against it at the Academy. His fame was comparable to the Bieber fever phenomenon, but make it for actors. I feel like today there aren't any like big actors or like we have celebrity actors, but not in the way that it was then. And really in the 1900s is when actors were such a big thing. Names like Marilyn Monroe, Marlon Brando, Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, Frank Sinatra was a singer, but Fred Astaire, like Elvis Presley. Well, Elvis Presley was also a movie star in addition to being a singer, but like, I don't know, that's something interesting to talk about, like what happened to movie stars, because they used to be the celebrities of their day, and it's kind of, culture has kind of changed where we don't have like 90s supermodels or actors who are like super huge famous actors kind of thing. Before there was YouTube, imagine a world without Netflix or YouTube or anything, and all you had was cable TV. There was an entire channel the summer of 1998 that was completely dedicated to Leonardo DiCaprio and his movies, and all day long, 24/7 for an entire summer. It may have lasted into the school year, but I remember the summer of 1998, an entire channel for Leonardo DiCaprio, and my cousin and I would just watch his movies, binging all day long. That's it. My favorite movies of his, aside from Titanic, which I watched into the ground, but it was Romeo and Juliet and What's Eating Gilbert Grape. And I would watch those films incessantly. I saw This Boy's Life and it was really depressing. And he had some other ones that were super depressing as well. But Leonardo DiCaprio always wanted to be taken seriously as an actor. And he really, as much as he enjoyed being a heartthrob and having all the women, he also, again, wanted to be taken seriously. So he tried to temper his roles so that he wouldn't always be the pretty boy. Like, he wanted his acting chops. He wanted to be respected, essentially, by the Academy, which they never did, but... So by inhaling so much Leo, watching all his movies and everything, it's just, I created this perfect idea of this. Also because I had been reading that book, Elvis and Me, by Priscilla Presley. I don't know if any of you have read it, comment below. Priscilla Presley was 14 years old when she met Elvis Presley, and he was 24. So there was like a 10-year age gap between them. And he essentially invited her to come live with him at Graceland, and he married her, and his only child came through her. And she wrote this book essentially on what it was like to be with Elvis. And I think I must have inhaled this book and thought about, like, wow, maybe this could be Leonardo DiCaprio and I, like, he just needs to meet me and see me, and he's gonna fall in love with me the way he did with Priscilla Presley. I don't know what I was thinking. I was crazy. And it's like, part of me knew Leonardo DiCaprio wasn't perfect. Again, he was a cigarette smoker, but somehow I thought that I could fix him. You know what I'm saying? Like, something that went over my head in the movie Romeo and Juliet. Recently, somebody told me that he takes LSD in the movie Romeo and Juliet. And even though I'm Colombian descent, I didn't know what LSD looked like. I I knew about drugs, don't get me wrong, but I just didn't know what he was doing in the movie. Like, my mind was innocent to that. So I don't know if I thought those were sweet tarts or what I thought, but I just kind of ignored things. Things went over my head. And I just thought that I understood Leonardo DiCaprio because he came from, even though I didn't come from a broken, like he came from a divorced family or whatever, I knew about all of these traumatic things from his childhood based off of what I was reading. So I just wasn't living in reality. I was constantly thinking about him, and I would waste so many hours of my life looking up stuff on Leonardo DiCaprio in high school. It was sad. Like, I should have been focusing on my studies and on myself, but no, it was all about what can I learn about Leo. And I had a plan to marry him. I guess I just thought, even though he was dating all these supermodels, I thought that when he saw me, he was gonna stop and be like, I don't need these tall, blonde, skinny models. I just need you, Jennifer. You and your unibrow. Never mind that you're a little thicker, because at the time I was struggling with my weight a little bit in high school, like junior or senior year of high school. I thought he was gonna be like, no, you're beautiful. I see something in you, and I'm gonna marry you. You are a phenomenal actress, because I was gonna go to Hollywood because I had family in Hollywood and in LA. I was gonna major in theater at UCLA because my cousin did that and he graduated with the theater program from UCLA. But that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna go there. I was gonna get a talent agent, go to auditions, become famous. And Leonardo DiCaprio was gonna love me. You know, he was gonna take me to all the red carpet events. It was gonna be great. At the same time, I kind of felt like God was blocking me because of my weight. I was like, wait a minute, this weight it could potentially get in the way of Leo liking me because he liked the skinny models. And also, I knew that I wasn't a skinny model, so I was kind of angry at God that I didn't look a certain way, the way that I needed in order to possess him, you know, like, and also when I did try to do acting stuff here in Orlando, like something would always get in the way. And so I was just furious with God. I was angry at life in high school. I was just getting depressed. Obsessed on the internet with Leonardo DiCaprio. My weight was going up. Life wasn't going my way. I was so angry. My parents were fighting about church or something because at the time my dad had not accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior. He eventually did, but at the time he wasn't. So my mom and dad used to fight about God a lot. Because I was struggling so much. I just remember putting my fist up at God and I just said, like, if you don't give me Leonardo DiCaprio as my husband, I'll become a prostitute. Many times I said this to God, like furious, like because I knew my mom had told me that if you sin, you're hurting God's heart. You're breaking his heart when you sin. And I thought the way for me to like stab God or to manipulate him or to get him to do what I want is to threaten him, to do something he's not gonna like so that he'll give me my way. And so that was my way of threatening God. I'll become a prostitute, the very thing you don't want me to do. Like, don't make me do it, God. Like, you know, that was my horrible attitude, and he should have like rained fire and brimstone on me, but he didn't. And I learned HTML on my own on Yahoo, or Lycos or whatever. Back when the internet was new, there were a lot of ways to learn JavaScript and HTML, and so I would make my own web page. And so my cousin was interested in classic Hollywood, and she actually became a film historian and has written many books on classic Hollywood celebrities. She's been featured on CNN and everything. But so she and I used to run around Hollywood, and so that was pretty interesting because she would actually meet the family of, like, she ended up publishing in college like a book on Marilyn Monroe. It was fascinating. She was on like the Good Morning America thing in Philly, but I digress. The point is, I'm seeing my cousin doing all this stuff. So I start making a website for Leonardo DiCaprio, and it was really good, I might add. Like, I don't think it's up anymore. But there was a section on this website for Leonardo DiCaprio that was dedicated to all the women that he had dated. So if I had pictures of him with any women, I showed it there because I guess I was just obsessed with knowing what kind of women Leo liked so that I could try to emulate them in some way. And one in particular was, I don't want to give away her name because I am Facebook friends with her and I want to keep whatever relationship I have with her. I think she still remembers me. When we became Facebook friends a few years ago, she still remembered me. But anyway, her sister ended up getting in touch with me and her sister was like, yeah, I'm going to connect you with, Leo's ex-girlfriend, so-and-so, and maybe you can host a website for her. So I started hosting her website and she would tell me all about Leonardo DiCaprio. This was in the 90s. She would send me all of her images, snail mail, and I had her talent agent's phone number so that I could, back then you could call in the phone book and she just had to tell me her agency and I could look up her agency in LA. And we had a lot of family in Los Angeles. So I'm not quite sure why we had a phone book for Los Angeles, but I'm assuming it's because of my family in LA. But anyway, I could look up where all the businesses were if I needed to call her at Chateau Marmont, which Chateau Marmont is off of Sunset Boulevard, and it was a place that Leonardo DiCaprio used to love to hang out. And so I was very aware that it was a fun celebrity hotspot. And his ex-girlfriend used to go hang out there. And sometimes I would call Chateau Marmont and be like, I need to speak with so-and-so. And they would send me to her room and I could chat with her. And she would also make me aware of any fashion, like things that catalog she was going to be in. I could subscribe to the catalog and they would mail me the catalog and I could scan in those pictures and post them on her website. So I was hosting a website for one of his ex-girlfriends, but I did a great job, I might add, but one of the best benefits of that was hearing what it was like to date Leonardo DiCaprio. And so here I was, I'm getting emotional, crying out to God, telling him that I would become a prostitute. And what does he do? Instead of whipping me, he sends me the ex-girlfriend of Leo to tell me what it was like to date him. And she wasn't just some fling for him. It was a pretty intense thing. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want you to guess who she is per se. But she would tell me that she used to fight with Leo about whether or not God existed. I had never read anywhere that Leo didn't believe in God. And now I think it's common knowledge that eventually did come out in a publication. But at the time, a teenage me hearing that Leonardo DiCaprio didn't believe in God, I knew what an atheist was, but I had never myself met anyone who was an atheist. I feel like now you hear about atheism so much more today than you did in the 90s. It sounded absurd and crazy to me because even if you didn't like Jesus, you still believed in God, or at least in again, this is pre-internet, and so I was like, what do you mean? Like on the phone, what do you mean he doesn't believe in God? She's like, he doesn't believe in God. And I was like, well, didn't you tell him that God exists? And she was like, we used to fight about that all the time. We would go back and forth arguing on whether or not God existed or not. And I was like, this was shocking to me, so incredibly shocking, because she was so gorgeous, this model was, that I remember thinking, my gosh, if this woman who looks the way she does and actually had him, she possessed Leo in a way that I had only ever dreamed of, and she couldn't convince him that God exists, then there was no way that I was gonna convince him that God existed. And so that was bomb dropping on my head. But then she told me And I hesitate to say this because I don't want Leonardo DiCaprio to sue me for slander or something like that. But she told me that one of the things she thought that was so gross about him was that he would go swimming and he would swim. And then when he would get out of the pool, he would be like, I don't need to shower. I went swimming today, so I'm good. And she would get really grossed out by that. And she'd be like, ew, you're dirty. You need to go take a shower. And he was like, no, I showered. The pool was my shower. This was shocking to me because there was a time that I lived with my cousins in Southern California, and I was in 6th grade. It was just like a short thing when my dad had tried to start a business in LA. I would go swimming after school, and that was my shower for the day. And my cousins thought that this was so gross and disgusting, and they would call me a dirtball and make fun of me for it, and that was for like a few months that went on. And I had matured and become a showering person who cared about her hygiene, and to hear that a grown man in his 20s was doing what my younger prepubescent self was doing, I guess I just expected him to be better than me or more hygienic or something. I just expected more from him. And so to hear that this was the man that I had put on this high pedestal, and he was doing something that I thought was below me, or like I had learned to look down on that type of attitude or whatever, that type of hygiene or whatever, and he was doing it, I kind of lost respect for him, I guess, or like it really brought him down some levels in my eyes. When Leo moved on to his next girl after her, I remember her bawling, like, he left me for so-and-so. Like, she was still in pain because I think they kind of had been, well, I won't go into details about their relationship, but I also kind of realized the people who Leo surrounded himself with were people that I would not want to associate with in my adult life, because I was a teenager. And so this woman that I was speaking with was in her 20s. I mean, she had friends that were in movies. It was so fascinating hearing her talk, by the way, because she was talking about celebrities that were really cool at the time that were her friends. And so that part was really fun. But at the same time that was fun, I also didn't like, I just realized that she was friends with more worldly people than I think I was too innocent for Hollywood is the point that I'm trying to make. And that was really hard to accept, I think, when I realized that I didn't want to move to Hollywood, or at least not right after high school. If I ever went there, I wanted to go there when I was more mature, if you will, which I ended up working for Disney, as you know, and I was much happier in the Disney entertainment department, which was more up my alley. But I think I've mentioned on my YouTube channel before how I had an acting teacher here scream at me and tell me that I would never make it in LA because I refused to kiss this one guy who was 19 years old. I was like, no, in my acting class. She really wanted me to kiss him, and I was just refusing. He was hot too, I will say, but I don't want to say that too loud for my husband. But I respected my husband. I wasn't going to do that. And so she was really angry and she really screamed in front of all the students. But that's neither here nor there. And by the time I graduated high school, I realized that this model, this ex-girlfriend of Leo, wasn't paying me for hosting her website and doing all this work and effort that I was contributing to her fame or whatever. And I kind of abandoned that website and kind of stopped calling her. I don't want to say that I used her, like I didn't mean to use her if I did, but she wasn't paying me essentially, and I didn't want to have that uncomfortable conversation. I knew she was struggling to make ends meet towards the end. A lot of her jobs were kind of drying up, and she eventually left Hollywood and started her own business and became an entrepreneur. And now she's happily married and she's not living in California anymore. And so that's really fun to see this new side of her. She seems so much happier and healthier emotionally when I see her posts on social media, on Facebook. And every so often she will post on Leonardo DiCaprio, because I think she, kind of like the way I talk about reminisce on my Disney princess days, she will reminisce on her Leonardo DiCaprio days, because it was a huge part of her life and her youth. And she has some pretty amazing pictures too. And she would also send me these pictures of her and Leonardo DiCaprio that I would then scan into my computer and upload and post online. And I remember there was like a chat message board on my website for her, and people would be like, how is she getting all these photos? Like, cause I as the web host, I was anonymous. And so people were really shocked, like, where are these pictures coming from? So it was just a crazy time for me in high school. I did not tell any of my friends in high school because I didn't think that anyone would believe me. And I also didn't know anyone who was obsessed with Leonardo DiCaprio the way I was. I don't know, high school is a weird, strange time where you are figuring yourself out. You know, in the Bible it says not to have any other idols before me or whatever in the 10 Commandments, but I never thought about celebrities as an idol because it wasn't like a physical object. But in your heart, you know, we can have idols in a way, things that we elevate above God or are obsessed with. But so if you are struggling with obsession with, I don't know if it's like a YouTuber or someone like Taylor Swift or some kind of celebrity, and it's taken over your life and you're angry, ready to threaten God that you'll become a prostitute if he doesn't give that person to you, I just want to encourage you to acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge whatever it is you like about this person. I think with Leonardo DiCaprio, it's just, I admired the actor that he had become and the types of movies that he was making. These, you know, he was doing Shakespeare, he was doing this epic historical movie from something that really affected me in middle school, a story that I was way into. Very talented actor. He was from Hollywood, where a lot of my family was from. So I just was looking at all of his positives. I had never stopped to acknowledge who I was or what kind of man I would want to marry. And so listening to the ex-girlfriend of Leo, she kind of helped me to see that Leonardo DiCaprio was not a man who I would want to marry after listening to her. And so I go back to that prayer where I was threatening God, and I'm like, wow, God, instead of yelling at me or letting me move to LA, you came and you showed me why I didn't want him. And so I kind of see that as God acting in my life, and it's one of the reasons I continue to believe and have faith in God and in prayer, is because of like that's it was a huge part of my life, I felt like, or my formative years. And so I guess it's part of my testimony in a weird way, you know. So acknowledging your feelings, challenge your thoughts of that celebrity or whoever it is you're obsessed with or idolizing. They probably have faults, things that might cause you to lose respect for them if you knew that about them. But even if they don't, I think that person would want you to focus on yourself if they knew you. One of the best things you can do is to invest in yourself and to realize that you are just as important as that, whoever they are, actor, YouTuber, singer, whatever. And the same kind of influence and the things that you admired about that person, you might be able to do for somebody else, and help them in whatever way that maybe you feel that person helped you or inspired you. I feel like, I guess I kind of wish I would have had somebody who was gonna be like, yeah, but you're important also, or like, I don't know, if you could ask a parent or a friend to kind of be that person for you, to remind yourself why you are as important as that person. And see, maybe God knew that I didn't have anybody to tell me or show me that. And so that's why he sent the ex-girlfriend to help me see that, you know, that I was important too. Because I think that's ultimately what I took away from her, was realizing that Leo's just a human and we're all important. And so, like, not to give him higher importance than he should have, and to focus on my life, you know? So I kind of feel like God used her in that way. So I would recommend prayer if you don't have a person to talk to, but if you could have both prayer and a person to talk to, that would be ideal. I do believe in prayer. So I think part of me also admired that Leonardo DiCaprio had this global fame, which was unlike anything I had ever seen at that point in my life. But I will say, working in Disney World, performing as a Disney princess, I remember, like, it must have been a couple years into working there, there was a time, especially at Epcot, walking around thinking, like, you guys know who Hannah Montana is, right? She would able to take off her wig and put it on so she could be anonymous whenever she wanted to be. I remember having this feeling walking around because people would come and like swarm you sometimes as a performer, as a character, because they know the cartoon, they know Princess Jasmine, they know Pocahontas, or maybe Cinderella or whoever. They don't know Jennifer Oaks, but they think they know you because of what you're wearing, these people or whatever. And so I remember thinking, I'm so glad I get to take off this costume and go be me. Sorry if you can hear my son in the background. He's playing video games. But I remember thinking, I'm so glad I can just go home and be me, that I don't have to always be recognized everywhere I go. Because I remember thinking, oh, like, it had never dawned on me how maybe always being recognized everywhere you go could get annoying. Not that it's annoying, because obviously you would be grateful or whatever, but there is actually something to be said for anonymity. And I couldn't see that as a teenager. I remember thinking, oh, it'd be so cool to be a celebrity or an actor and be recognized, but it's not always so cool, you know, if you don't want to be recognized. But anyway, so that was my story time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, share it if you think somebody else might enjoy watching it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. I hope to see you guys again soon in the next video, and we'll be in touch. Bye everyone. If you want another story from my high school, definitely check out my high school crush story, The Crush I Never Forgot, and I'll link it in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great night. Bye everyone.